We're in.
Bro, happy birthday, man.
Thank you very much.
42.
42, man. 42.
That's incredible, man. Do you ever think you'd make it this far?
I don't even think I ever even thought about it, but here we are. Here we are, man. Here we are.
It's crazy. Like, I remember being a kid and being like, oh man, in like the year 2010, which was so futuristic, you know, you're like, I'm going to be this old. Am I ever going to be that old? And then you start calculating. You're like, what about 2025? How old am I going to be? You know what I mean? You're like, I'll never make it that old. Like,
yeah, no, 42, like, you know, when you're 16, 42 is like an old guy. Now it's like, fuck. But I tell you what, man.
Totally an old guy.
I know. But I'm in the best shape of my life. I've never been in better shape ever.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, I weighed myself yesterday at 178 on the scale.
Holy moly. What do you attribute it to besides me?
You've been a big component. I can't lie. But I've just been consistent, man. I've been consistent. I don't know that there's been a and we've talked about this a lot. Like, there's been a mental shift. There's been a mental shift. Like, because I've always worked out and I've always tried to eat good and but I don't know. I guess, like, you know, you've said this many times, like, there's different seasons in life. And I think that in terms of like eating and exercise and that kind of shit, it's all locked in. It locked in somehow. Like, it clicked finally. I need some other things to click. But that shit is clicked.
It's amazing. And I think you hit, like, as far as principles, the most important thing in the world is consistency.
Yes.
It's not like everyone thinks it's like, you know, am I working out hard enough? It's like, I've told you this before too. Like, people always ask me, like, you know, how do I get a black belt? And I point to the door and I'm like, walk through that door every day. That's how you don't worry about it, because you're going to get smoked some days and you're going to smoke people some. You're going to be the hammer. You're going to be the nail.
Yep. 100%. 100%.
But it's crazy what consistency will do, right?
Yeah. I mean, between you and I meeting and the shoulder surgery, I think, like, there was a lot of just, you know, it all kind of clicked. And then it was like, all right, I'm in my 40s, man. There's no, like, I have to, it was a mindset switch that was different for the first time ever. And I've been locked in. It's been almost like 2 years, you know?
Wow. Yeah. You know, what's wild is
I was
that
205 or 202. I was 202 pounds.
And now what are you?
178.
That's so much weight.
I know.
That's incredible, man. That's incredible. I know. How much better do you feel?
Like, a lot better.
Right.
My jiu-jitsu is better.
Right there.
You know what I mean? I'm lifting weights where, like, previous to that, like, I wasn't really lifting weights. I mean, every once in a while, but, like, it's consistent. You know, food is not as like, it's not even that difficult anymore to, like, not overeat and not, you know, indulge, and I eat what I want to eat. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like it's like, I'm not like on any kind, but it's been so much easier to be locked in, and I don't, you know, it's been good.
Yeah.
42.
I find it's amazing. We're creatures of habit. And so the more you do something, first you got to break that bad habit. Then you start solidifying the new habit. And then it becomes easier. But then what happens is the results of doing something consistently. Like, remember in the first Conan?
Yeah.
With Arnold Schwarzenegger, when he's pushing that thing and they show him from a kid till he's an adult, and he's been pushing this thing for this many years, and all of a sudden he's just big and all. That's fantasy, but the reality is that's how it goes. So people trip on me because they're like, you only work out 15 minutes a day. I'm like, yeah, but I do it every day. And so what happens is after,
you know, whatever.
So after a while, your muscles they become strong and they become ripped and they become, you know what I mean? All of that, where it becomes baked down into the bones, you know?
Yep.
And that doesn't happen from doing a hard workout once, you know, for 2 weeks straight or 2 months straight, and then you quit for a month, and then you know.
Yeah.
No, you're doing too much, do little, because it's easier to do little consistently.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, that's
100%.
awesome, man. Speaking about health, you know, we were talking and I alluded to something that happened, and I haven't told you what happened. So I was supposed to go to the Bahamas. Dude, this is the craziest story you've ever freaking heard. All right. So I was supposed to go to the Bahamas. I'm all pumped. We got the yacht, my buddy's yacht. It's like, I'm stoked, right? I go in like every year, you know, I get general checkup and all that, and I get my blood work done and all that business. And so I got a new doctor here in Miami. And I went to the doctor, and the nurse came in and she took my blood pressure, right? And she's like, "You have the blood pressure of someone who's 18 years old." And I'm like, "Yeah." I'm all stoked, you know?
Nice.
Totally stoked. Then she's like, she hooks me up to an EKG, and so they do that takes like a minute. And I don't know if I've had an EKG before or not. I can't even remember, but I don't remember that being part of my general practice, you know, general checkup. And so then the doctor comes in, cool guy. So we're talking, he's like, "Okay, well, you're athletic and all that." And he looks down and he goes, he's looking at the chart, and he looks at me and he looks at the chart and he goes, "You had a heart attack?" And I'm like, "What?" And he goes, "It looks right here like you had a heart attack from your EKG results. You got a problem with your EKG. Something's wrong with your heart." And I was like, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "It looks like you have a heart attack. You had a heart attack. You got a blockage in your heart."
Oh my God.
And I'm like, "Are you freaking kidding me? I'm do everything that can be done, you know, to be healthy." Granted, most of it's 15 minutes, but, you know, aside from that, so I'm like, he's like, "No, it looks like you had a heart attack. You have to go see a specialist like now."
Holy
and so
shit.
I'm like, "Oh my gosh." So I get home and I'm trying to get an appointment with a specialist. My head's spinning. And so I luck out, and there's an appointment like that week that I can get an appointment with the specialist. So I'm like, I got to jump on it. And it just happened to coincide with the trip to the Bahamas. So I had to cancel that. I was like, "No, I need to see this guy." And so what it turns out with the heart is that I'm no cardiologist, right? But what I learned, because obviously when you have an issue, you learn everything you can about it. So what it turns out is that the heart is like an engine, and there is gas that flows through the engine. And most people that get blockages, they get blockages in their arteries, right? And so that's the next thing they send for me. They're like, the doc's like, "You should go get a calcium heart scan." And what this does, I recommend everybody do this. It's like a 5-minute procedure and fairly new, I think. And so they look at like plaque buildup in the heart with this calcium heart scan. Have you ever had one?
No, but I have genetically high cholesterol, and I track a lot of those levels and stuff. And so I'm kind of aware of a lot of this stuff.
Yeah. And it runs in my family. I think my father had a heart attack and had stent and all that crap, you know. You also eat a lot of hot dogs and a lot of meat. Right? So I don't want to hear from him or, you know, from my genetics that, "Oh, you're going to have heart problems, artery problems because I don't eat hot dogs." So anyways, I went in and got the calcium heart scans. It's very cheap, like $75. I follow a longevity doctor, Dr. Khan, and he is an advocate for this. So I was like, okay, I want to get this done. I go and get the calcium heart scan, and I'm kind of freaked out. So the nurse told me, she's like, "You have a perfect score. You have zero buildup in your heart, zero, right? Because I haven't eaten meat for 35 years. So I was like, oh, okay, cool. No blockages in the arteries. But the thing about the heart is that the heart you have gasoline or blood that flows through the heart like an engine. Think of it, an engine has gasoline, the heart has blood that flows through it. But within an engine, you also have spark plugs and electrical that runs through it, right? So you have blood that flows through it, and you have electricity that flows through the heart. And so what it turns out is that something's wrong with the electrical flow through my heart, and I have a blockage.
Wow. Holy shit.
Yes. And I was like, oh my God. I'm like, this is freaking me out. So then I go, when I'm supposed to be in the Bahamas,
on a fucking yacht.
On a yacht. Right? Instead, I get this cardiologist appointment who's a specialist, right? And so I go into the appointment, and I'm freaking out, and about my health. I'm like, man, can I do jujitsu? Can I do, what am I going to be able to do? It just so happens, I'll name drop this guy, Eli Friedman. He's at the University of Miami, and he is one of the top sports cardiologists that there is. And so first, another doctor comes in, and he evaluates everything. He looks at everything, looks at the EKG. He's like, okay, looks like you got a problem, but let's wait for the Dr. Friedman to come in. So then he comes in, and he looks at my chart. He's asking me questions, listens, they check my blood pressure also. He goes, man, you're an athlete. How old are you? And he's like, what are your habits and all that? I'm like, listen, the only thing that I do as far as vice is smoke a pipe, and he's my tobacco pipe. And he's like, you're good, man. That's all good. You don't inhale it, you're fine. And I'm like, good, because I'm not quitting. Right? And so then he's like, listen, and he looks at the other doctor and he looks at me. He goes, it's actually really lucky that you pulled me when you pulled the cardiologist, because I specialize in sports. And he looks at the other doctor. He said, most doctors, cardiologists don't know this, but buried in the literature, because it's rare, buried in the literature, it turns out that if you are a lifelong athlete, then, and he goes, and you've been doing jujitsu, I've always competed at something or other, racquetball, whatever, So he's like, you're a lifelong athlete. He said, what happens? And he's looking at the other doctor to like educate him, but also me. A lifelong athlete, because blood flow is different, the heart is not completely symmetrical. To make up for the blood flow change that happens with an athlete, with the intensity of it, and I'm probably butchering part of this, he said, but what happens is that the electrical patterns within the heart will shift and make up for that intensity in the heart. He said, so what you have is an evolutionary adaptation to athletic endeavor your whole life. And I was like, oh, and he's like, you're lucky you pulled me, because most doctors don't know this. And I was like, oh my gosh. I'm like, yes. And so that was that. I went for one more thing. He goes, I want to send you for a sonogram. So dude, so they have this cardio echogram or something like that. And it's like when a baby's being born, they put the sonogram. I mean, this thing takes like half an hour. So you take your shirt off, and they like move you all over the bed so they can get, oh, you did? How did it go? Why?
I went in for a physical, and I had an irregular EKG. It was, and the guy immediately was like, you got to go to a cardiologist. And I did. You
had the same thing.
Yeah. But they didn't, it was like inconclusive. Like it was,
I wonder if it was inconclusive for the reason that we're talking about.
Maybe. And then when I went back and did it again, like months later, it was normal. It was normal, but like it was an irregular EKG. I did the stress test. I did the I did the stress test, I did the sonogram, and I did one other thing.
How long ago was that?
Like maybe like a year or two.
I wonder why they didn't. I don't think insurance covers the calcium heart scan. So I don't know if they mention it or not, but did they mention that to you?
No. The guy was like, "You're too young. I think this was, a million different things that aren't a problem."
I wonder if you had the same thing.
Maybe.
From jiu-jitsu, from your heart, the intensity of what we do and the heart starting to rewire itself. It might be bouncing back and forth. This is where I'm playing doctor and I'm not one, but maybe your heart is
end of the line. You're okay. You don't have to do, there's no follow-up.
Perfect.
Holy shit.
No, because then I did the cardio echogram and they were like, your heart is perfect. Yeah. Your heart is perfect. All of it. Everything is perfect. So I was like, yes.
Yeah. I remember when you told me, I was like, you in the Bahamas, and you're like, no, man, I'm not going to tell you now. I'm going to tell you in the podcast. Yeah.
It was crazy, but you know what? What it was awesome about it is it reiterated, like you can, I'm sure, speak to this also. Health is everything. Like money and all of it just becomes worth zero when you don't have health. It becomes worth zero. Yep. Your accolades, your medals, your championships,
everything.
It becomes worth nothing.
Yep. And it's so delicate, the balance of like everything's okay, and then 1 minute it's not. Yeah,
but
it's crazy.
The path for me is like ensuring. I was just filming a video on this and talking about how, the reality is we all want to lose fat, build muscle, get ripped, all that. But none of that lasts. Those changes don't like take hold. Like we were saying, like working out, all these things, they don't really last. Like I saw this thing that said that 95% of Americans who lose weight within 2 years gain it back.
Yeah. Sure.
95%.
Because I don't think there's that mentality shift. I don't think there's that like that.
Yeah, that's it right there. That is it right there. They don't do this shift right here.
Yeah.
It's got to be this. And one of the things is that, in America, I think our obesity rate is like 45%, 45%.
It's crazy.
Not overweight, obese.
Crazy.
And you see that when you come back, when you're over in the Dominican Republic for extended period, or, you're in Europe and you come back from another country, you go, I remember the first time after a year in Europe and I went to Walmart, I was like, what the fuck is going on here? How do you people, because I know that doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
I know that feeling of being overweight. I've been there. It's horrific. Yeah. You're living in a horror movie. And in my opinion, that's how it felt to me.
I think there are so many people though that don't really know what it feels like to feel good.
No, they don't.
And they don't even, they don't know.
You're right.
Sad.
After a while, we become conditioned to say, this is okay to feel like this.
This is reality. This is my reality.
And it is, if that's what you make your reality, the mind creates our reality. It creates everything. It hallucinates all the data that comes in, like a VR headset, from the quantum, everything. But it also, our body is a manifestation of our minds. If we expect something, then it happens. Our body represents that. And unfortunately, you're right. People just are like, yeah, they just accept it. This is it. But the consequences of that.
People are checked out, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, there's no question. But there isn't I don't know what it is, man. I don't know because it's like, it's hard. It's hard to be alive. It's hard.
It is. It's fucking hard. And we need to accept that. And have a degree of compassion with people, and even on ourselves. As we're trying to transform. We do have to have, and be like, okay, it's kind of like in jiu-jitsu, right? When we're a white belt, You got to be humble and just be like, okay, I'm not going to be a white belt forever. I'm going to get to blue belt if I stick with this. And it's the same thing with dieting.
It's the thought process, man. That's what it is. And like, I don't know, like what, not everybody has the same way in, but like, it's so funny because jujitsu guys always relate everything to jujitsu, but there's so much truth to it. And,
That's right.
And there aren't a lot of things as you become a man and you go into adulthood where you can see it so clearly, like the way you see it in jujitsu, and how like, if you just stay at something and approach it with humility, but understanding that if you keep at it and you keep chopping at the tree, you're going to cut it down. It's going to get better. You're going to get better. And it's
a big tree, but it will, you're right. It will come down. Just have faith.
But so many people have such a hard time connecting to that concept in so many things. And I guess, when I was younger, I had a lot less empathy towards people who didn't try hard and didn't try to better themselves. But as I'm getting older, I'm having more and more empathy because it's very clear to me that some people just don't see it. They don't get it. They can't connect. And everybody has a different mechanism to connect. And there's just so many people out there that haven't found the connection point to understand that I have, while you could argue that maybe we don't have control, but you can influence your own reality for the better. You can do things to make your reality better. But not everybody can see it so clearly, and everybody has a different way to connect to it. And that it's interesting. It's really interesting. And I've learned to be more empathetic as I've gotten older.
Yeah. Empathy is a key part because we have to be you don't want to, again, jujitsu, right?
Yeah.
You don't want to be the higher level belt that's looking with disdain and contempt at a white belt. You want to be
so many of those guys.
Dude, you're here.
Yeah.
You got this.
Beat me.
Come on. Encourage.
Yeah.
You got this. You're doing well. Don't get discouraged, man. The feeling of getting smothered, you'll become comfortable with it.
And it's so amazing because we have a crop of white belts here. We got a bunch of guys, and they're all starting to get better. They're all starting to get. They're all kind of coming up on a year. And I was rolling with one this morning, and from going from a place where I could just manhandle him like a child to where now in the realm of months, he's getting harder and harder. Kid's 6'2", he's athletic, he's a college lacrosse player. I mean, he's a stud, and he's getting harder and harder to close. He's getting harder and harder to kill. And it's and I'm talking to him, I'm saying that's it, dude. It's a small amount of time until you're going to surpass me. It's because I can't catch, you know what I mean? You're 20 years old. You're a college athlete. You're bigger, faster, and stronger than I am. I just know more than you do. And I've been doing this for a longer time. But it's happening. Maybe you can't see it, but it's happening. And it's so cool. It's so cool. And that happens in everything.
And it's cool because, that we as upper belts have a responsibility to nurture the younger belts, the lower belts. That's our responsibility. That's your, that whole Peter Parker, Spider-Man, with great power comes great response. That's the responsibility that comes with the belt. Don't be a dick.
Yeah.
Don't be an asshole. Don't be an arrogant, whatever.
Yeah.
Be kind, nurture, and help the next generation. That's what it's all about. And that's what I love about jiu-jitsu because like you said, what's very important about what jiu-jitsu gives is that, so I'll backtrack a little bit more. I think we talked about the book Stealing Fire. I don't know if we've talked about it on here, but
it's a fucking great book.
Amazing book. Stealing Fire.
Directly to me, man. Spoke right to me.
Yeah. And again, to reiterate the theme of the book, I mean, it's basically transformation? Why do some groups, why like the Navy SEALs and, Silicon Valley entrepreneurs, et cetera, why is it that so many people, like the 95% of people who fail to actually keep the weight off, why is it that only 5% of people actually transform? And it really they go back to, it involves a few practices. And one of them, like meditation, because you got to change the mind. Again, the mind is 98, 99% subconscious, right? You can't think your way into changing your mind. It doesn't work like that. All the self-help and the Marines online that are screaming at you and all that, that's not changing your mind. And so they went through a few real practices that do help transform these 5% who actually do change. And they were like, psychedelics, meditation, martial arts. And I was like, martial arts? But the reason that martial arts, are so important for changing is because, like you're saying, our martial arts involve everything, right? Especially if you're competing, because you're losing weight, you're learning your body, you're learning to lose weight and get ready for a competition. You're testing your pressure, stress levels. But not only that, you're also learning how to interact with others in a tribal sense. And we are tribal creatures. So you have this accountability with your teammates. You're helping others. They're helping you. It gets us out of our head. There's something that happens with that even sitting alone in a cave and meditating isn't going to give you. You need it all. You need those three things. And then the plasticity of the brain with psychedelics, it's important. It works. Yeah. And so,
hell yeah.
Not something that people have to do a million times, maybe one. I think John Hopkins showed that, 1 or 2 times will change your life forever, but it should be done in a clinical setting with people who are, et cetera, et cetera. I don't recommend to anybody going out there and going to a rave and taking psychedelics. That's not what it's about.
No.
But yeah, so, it's if you look at it, so, in America, we've got this 45% obesity rate. In Japan, it's 4%.
That's insane.
Yeah. Why is that? Because of not diet, not because of walking, it's because of everything. It's called a lifestyle.
Yeah.
It's a completely different lifestyle. The way they approach stress, the way they approach their downtime, the way all of it, the way the Zen that's like baked into the culture. So yeah, you have to be prepared to get the results that you want. That's the problem that I have, with even like some people, and I have clients on TRT and Ozempic and weight loss drugs and all that. The problem with it that I see again and again, why people even on those drugs don't get lasting results, is because they haven't gone through and integrated a complete lifestyle change. And until you do that, it's not going to stick, because you're going to go right back to what you were doing, especially with the weight loss drugs.
100%.
And one of the things that I find with clients who are on weight loss drugs is that the reason that you're probably overeating is because it's a coping mechanism to deal with the stress. So until you change your life in regards to the stress load, and not only that, you learn how to deal and filter out, have a boundary, a force field, how are you ever going to stop overeating? And so what happens, go ahead.
You said something. I was clipping, last week I clipped a few of the episodes. I don't know if it was the last one or the one before it, but you said something that really hit me. And I thought that this is a really important concept that I think needs to be talked about a lot more. You said one of the biggest things that we do wrong is assign morality to the coping mechanisms, and understanding that like all of us as human beings, nobody knows why, but it's a reality that all of us in different ways are like trying to fill the existential void, and we all go about it in different ways that aren't good for us. And assigning morality to it is really hindering people's ability to understand and then get better. And I heard you say that, and I was like, that's so true. It's so true, because like there's something innately inside of us that is trying to be fulfilled, and we don't know what it is. And you know, we're you know, if you dig down deep to the core of all of us, there's that question, and that question doesn't have an answer, and that expresses itself in very many different ways, and it produces fear, and it produces insecurity, and people try to mask it with all sorts of stuff, but it's natural. I mean, or whatever it is, it's something that's beyond our control. It's something that is innate.
Do you like to be uncomfortable? Do you like your hand on fire? Are you not going to pull your hand away from that fire? You will. I promise you, over time, you will. Either immediately,
and we're not running away from saber-toothed tigers anymore, but the saber-toothed tigers are living inside of our heads and our souls.
Dude, you want to hear this crazy story? It's funny you brought this up. So I'm in Northwest Florida, and I'm sitting there chilling, watching the fireworks. And I always sit in lotus position because I've had back issues and neck issues, and it forces me to have perfect posture. I had to learn that because of my issues, spinal issues. And so a couple came up to me because we're at a resort, and they're like, hey, you know, they just started talking to me. They're like, yeah, we just flew in. We're here for a little bit. And they, you know, they could see that I probably do yoga and all that. And so they go, yeah, so we started kind of talking, and I'm like, how long are you guys in town? What are you doing? And they're like, we're leaving here like tomorrow, and we're going to Gainesville, which is halfway between Miami and where I was in Destin, Florida. And they're like, we're going to the Temple of the Universe. And I was like, what? What's that? And they're like, cool. There's this guy. Yeah, right. I was like, dang, that sounds really cool, in the middle of the woods, right? And so there's they're like, yeah, there's this guy, this author who wrote this book, really famous book called The Untethered Soul. And it's his meditation retreat. And I was like, I read that book. And they're like, yeah, Michael Singer. And I'm like, what do you mean? I didn't know he had a retreat here in Florida. And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, oh, you guys got to text me when you go. And then I'm going to go when I go back to Miami. So I was driving back to Miami last week, and I think it was on a Sunday or Thursday. I don't know, man. I lose track of days. And so I was driving back, and I pulled off, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to check this place out. And I mean, I'm driving through like swampy woods and all this. And I'm like, man, I hope I don't run out of juice on the Tesla and all this. So I finally find this like shack, like in the middle of the woods. And I walk up to it, and I'm like, I don't have an appointment. I don't know anything. So I walk up to the door, and it says Temple of the Universe. And I like open the door, and I look inside, and there's all these people in there doing yoga, and they're like halfway through a class. So I'm like, all right, I'm doing yoga. So I just jumped in and started doing yoga, you know? And so, and then afterwards I went, and yeah, it was really wild temple, like a wild, like big room with like these pictures of all these meditators and all these like spiritual masters and all this crazy symbolism. And it's as crazy as something you would expect of Temple of the Universe. And so, so then they're like, okay. And I talked to the teacher, and she's like, yeah, the author, Michael Singer, is about to speak in like 40 minutes. I'm like, well, I guess I'm staying for that too. And so then she's like, yeah, you're welcome to stay. I'm like, well, cool. And so then I'm like, okay, well, I haven't meditated during the afternoon. So I meditated. And then when I opened my eyes, there's like, the room emptied out when I started meditating. And then there's like 40 people in the room again. And like half of them are meditating. And so I'm like, this is crazy. And so then he comes in and starts like an old man, like a little old man, right? He's old now. I think he's been on Oprah and everything. I mean, this is a very famous book. And so then he starts like playing piano and singing this song. He's like a hippie from like the 60s. And it was cool, man. And I'm like, this is the most surreal experience. I love weirdness. I love
randomly happened. Yeah, absolutely.
Out of nowhere, right? And then he starts speaking. And what he says is that this is kind of my belief too, is that, we have, I'll paraphrase here, right? So we have our conscious minds, right? This is something that I learned in meditation when I was 10, right? We have our conscious mind here, which is this small. Percentage-wise, it's, less than like 1% of our brain, right? Conscious mind. The rest of it is the subconscious mind, right? And below that, we have our awareness. And our awareness is something that never changes. Like if you think about your existence from the time you were born, you were always aware. Everything else has changed. You've grown, your body has grown, your circumstances have changed. The only thing and the things you know and don't know right, have changed. The things you've forgotten, the things you've learned, the things you don't want to remember, right?
The awareness is always on in the background. It's always there.
Always on. Always on. And so really the purpose of meditation is you're transcending, but don't think about, going up or down, but you're really going down through the conscious mind, turning the attention instead of outward, which we do all day long, called externalizing. We turn it back. We close our eyes, we limit the senses coming in, the stimulus coming in, and we go down through the conscious mind, then down through the subconscious. And every once in a while, we get the glimpse, we experience just pure awareness. And when we experience pure awareness, there is no time and there is no space. We are gone. It's just bliss.
And that's like that book, Stealing Fire. Like that's the ecstatic states. And we all know what that feels like when we get high or when we drink alcohol or when we have sex or, you know what I mean? We've all
chasing that feeling. We're chasing that feeling.
And it's what I find so interesting is that it's all the same thing. And all of those things are just pathways to it. Validation from other people, likes from social media. It's all the same thing. It's all the same thing.
And it some of it is a momentary glimpse.
Yes.
Right. This is about to get really heavy. We're going into Jedi, elite, dark magic Jedi. This is it. Black belt level.
It's what we do.
Is what we do. And so what happens is we have this state of pure awareness. That is who we really are. Everything else changes. Subconscious is changing. Anything that changes, according to ancient rishis, it can't be real because it's always changing. So the identity is not really real. It's something that's fluid, but the awareness, the pure awareness is it. That is reality. And so we're seeking that. And in that state, think about this. This is really wild. In that state, when you get those glimpses of pure awareness, right? You're so in the moment that you have, here's like the number one thing, right? Number two things. You have one, no fear, right? And you have no desire.
That's the powerful one.
That's right. That's the powerful one.
That's the powerful one. From my perspective,
That's right. And that's exactly it. So in that pure state, that pure Zen state, when we're seeking Zen, We are seeking a state of no desire. We're seeking a state of no desire.
It's incredible.
Desire. And what does that mean? You ready for this? Desire is suffering.
Yeah. Because it's never ending.
It's
It's
insatiable.
You can't ever fill it up.
Nope. And so what they say is that we desire something, right? We're desiring something. I'm desiring a new car. I'm desiring a new shoes. I'm desiring someone to like me, to give me a like on social media. I want
be loved.
Someone else. I'm desiring this acknowledgement, this love, whatever it is. What happens is that when we get the like or we buy the thing, there is a momentary, however you want to define momentary, but a moment, I say momentary because it's a definitive period and then it ends, right? That momentary cessation of desire is what we become addicted to. So when we become addicted to shopping or whatever, or drugs or whatever, what we're really addicted to is the momentary cessation of desire.
Yeah.
That's it.
It's so powerful, man.
It's everything.
It's so powerful.
Yeah.
So powerful.
And so we have to understand that what we're really seeking is that thing right there. I'm not seeking an object or anything else in my external reality. I'm seeking within myself the cessation of desire. And so what he talked about was that he's very much into energy. And what he says is that I'm going to paraphrase, from the pure awareness, we have energy that flows through us. And some, Sir Roger Penrose is a panpsychist. I'm a panpsychist. I believe in that. What they say is that below all quantum fields, there is one quantum field, and it is the quantum field of consciousness. And that is where our awareness within ourselves is actually that field. It's our connection to that field. That is what we are. We are that field. And so that energy from that quantum field comes up through us, through our subconscious minds, through our conscious minds, permeates our body. That's where we have energy. It's not,
and it's always
think
there.
about it. It's always there.
And
that's where I just read a great little parable, and they were talking about how a guy he comes over and he's knocking on another guy's door, and he's like, please, can you help me? Can you help me? He's like, I need to, I don't have a lighter and I want to smoke my pipe. And the guy, do you have any hot coals? And this is an old Indian parable from India. And the guy who answers the door is like, of course I help you. I will help you. And I'm grateful that you were so courteous in knocking and, being kind and asking. He goes, but why did you go through all this trouble when you're holding a lamp that's already lit? And that's really what they're saying with that is it's always there. We're seeking it. We're carrying around seeking a lighted lamp, but we're looking for a flame everywhere, but we already have it inside of us.
So wild.
But
we don't know how to connect. We don't know how to connect to it. We don't know how to connect to it. Not yet, anyway.
We do know how to connect to it. We do know how to connect to it. And so what he said, the way we connect to it, Jesse, is that because it's inside of us, that's the problem with externalizing and the habitual. We talked earlier about the habit of of externalizing all the time. We are habitual creatures. So we are taught to always look outside of ourselves for everything. That's why meditation is so difficult for some people, because they're not used to sitting and turning that attention back inside.
Yep.
Right. So when we turn that attention back inside of ourselves and we go within, down through the conscious mind, down through the subconscious mind, then we dip our attention back into the awareness, even for moments, even for just touching that field, we are so enlivened and regenerated when we come back.
Yep.
I just finished there's an amazing biography by David Lynch, the director. And he is huge into meditation. He's got his whole life's work right now is spreading meditation to the world. And he talked about that, just like, the just dipping ourselves. That's the source of all of our creativity. That's the source of everything, is that field that lies beneath it. And we don't need to live in that field. We only need to re-experience it like a few times a day. And the more we do that, and the more, that's what mental training is about. The more we can train the mind to look inside, to properly look in the right place for where we're going to actually experience this bliss, this joy, and we keep externalizing out, we're going to be miserable. So what he was saying, so what Michael Singer, I'll wrap it up with this. So what Michael Singer was saying is that, this energy flows up through our bodies, through our subconscious, through our conscious minds into our bodies. And when we have blockages, they call them samskaras. When we have blockages that are either caused by desires that we fulfilled, like, if you do heroin or you get really into sex or whatever it is, these things create a samskara, an impression in our subconscious mind that starts to warp that energy. And when we have a blockage or a trauma, childhood trauma, maybe being neglected by a parent, maybe just being scolded all the time, whatever it is, it doesn't matter what it is. If it left an impression in your subconscious, there's no judgment. The only thing is you need to clear it out. Like the whole idea where people are like, don't be a pussy, right? It's like, no, that's not, you don't understand the science of the subconscious. So when we have this energy that hits one of these samskaras, these impressions in our subconscious mind, the body reacts with a coping mechanism.
Yeah.
And that coping mechanism is either, what he said, a desire or a fear.
Yeah. It's fucking totally it.
And you're going to repeat that desire, whatever it is that gives you that makes you do it, or you push it away. People who are really, really anxious and have anxiety and all that, they've got samskaras and they deal with it by pushing things away.
Avoiding.
That's right. We either try and pull things to us or we push them away. And both of those are suffering. Dude, how heavy is that?
Big. But I love it, man. I was born in the deep end. That's it. I love it. I mean, what else to talk about? You know what I mean?
I know, right? And so what he was saying is that, I do this too, because no one, we're never going to have, I know I'm never going to have this expectation that I'm going to live in bliss all the time, at least in my current state. I'm not enlightened, is that, and I don't pretend to be, is that it's like thinking that I'm going to be, I'm going to go into a gym, an elite gym, and smoke everybody. It's just not going to happen, And
no,
so,
but I think the powerful thing is being aware that, investigating this type of stuff.
Yes.
And making it part of your life. You know what I mean? Like, because dude, we're going to stumble. We're going to fuck up. We're going to make huge, epic mistakes. We're going to make them over and over again. But I think the light in the dark is like, if you're aware that there are things that you can do to influence your experience here, you got to be trying. You got to be looking for it. If you're looking for it, you're going to find stuff. And it doesn't mean you're going to cure your existence. It doesn't mean you're going to reach this point at which there are no more problems. That's never going to happen. But as you go, I think hopefully somehow, some way, you get a little bit better at the struggle. You struggle better. You know what I mean? You suffer better. And what else can you hope to do?
No, it's true. And I think anything we look for, we find. Like me finding out about this temple of the universe, I was like, this lecture that this guy gave was exactly what I needed to hear. It was exactly what I needed to hear. It was like perfect. It's like the universe, the cosmic dream, the cosmic simulation, whatever you want to call it, just
gives you what you need.
Boom, manifest. Yeah, always gives you what you need.
Crazy.
And so what I do now, it's something that he reinforced it for me. I already was kind of doing it, but when I'm feeling a feeling like that, when I'm feeling this dysregulation is a term for it. When I'm feeling this dysregulation of energy, this disharmony, whatever you want to call it, of the energy in there, is I just witness it and watch it in my body, and then go down even beneath that and try and figure out, where is the samskara, the original samskara that I had? Was this a childhood thing of rejection? Was it a childhood thing of being yelled at? Was it a childhood thing? Whatever it is,
there's a lot of that stuff.
Recent thing. Yeah. Is this a desire that, that I got myself looped into, like, doing whatever thing is that's addictive, and sitting with that until it melts away with my attention. I turn that attention inside, and then I find that thing that's causing it, not just the desire or the fear, but underlying that, go deeper in that. That is the purpose of meditation. That is why in Stealing Fire, they're like, meditation is so critical. And I've heard some people talk about how, meditation, their jujitsu is a meditative practice, and, all this. To me, it's like, no, that's missing the point. What you're doing is you're entering a flow state, which is great. But when you do a very specific quiet meditation where you dance, like a mantra meditation, or vipassana or breathing, when you go down inside your own, where your attention is engulfed in that experience, as opposed to escaping with jujitsu or sex or jumping out of a plane. Jumping out of a plane will put you in a flow state. I promise you. Sure. You will not be thinking of anything else, right? Getting in an ice bath, whatever, these things can be meditative, but the practice of meditation is how we mentally train to, and really most important, according, per him, was how we dissolve these samskaras. And once we do that, then we can flow through life with this energy, constant energy, unimpeded in our lives and our bodies, where we are. That really is the state of enlightenment.
Yeah.
The state where that we're unencumbered at all times by desire and fear. It's hard, but guess what? Getting black belt's hard.
Everything's hard, but what's really hard is, having a shitty life. That's hard too.
Yes. Yeah, suffering all the time. And 99.9% of suffering is right here.
Fucking A.
I know, right? Anyways, that was it. That's my crazy story. I don't know how. It's so cool that we got there from the freaking heart scare, Heartman's massacre scare. Yeah. What's going on, man? What have you been reading or watching or doing?
I'm watching The Bear. Have you seen The Bear?
Dude, my daughter told me about The Bear. She's like, you have got to watch The Bear.
It is.
What's it about?
It's next level. What's
it about?
So it's this guy who grew up in Chicago, family had like this kind of sandwich shop restaurant. He goes on to become like a Michelin star, like chef, like working in like the top. And then he comes back because his brother dies. And it's like the story of him trying to, and he's a psycho. And it's,
what do you mean he's a psycho?
The show is about everything we talk about. It's like an in-depth look at the suffering of a highly talented, highly fucked up individual, and who comes from a fucked up family. And it's such an absolutely brilliant, creative take on this guy's experience and the music and the way it's filmed. It's outrageous. And it's so outrageous that it's like, it makes you uncomfortable. It gives you anxiety. Like you are gripped. And like, especially me, because like I share a lot of the attributes that this guy struggles with.
Is he like self-aware of his issues?
He's going through the journey of becoming self-aware of the issues.
Oh, that's cool.
It's an amazing show. It's an amazing show. And it's all...
Oh, I got to watch it.
You got to watch it. I highly recommend. Highly recommend.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. I'm listening to the audiobook for Untethered Soul again, so I'm kind of diving into that. But
that's cool.
Yeah, I got to jump into something else soon. I got to watch. You know what I haven't watched that I really want to watch is the new Mad Max. I don't know if it's any good.
I saw it. It was pretty good. It was pretty good. Furiosa, it was pretty good.
Worth it?
Yeah, worth it for sure.
Okay. All right. I'm going to get on it. All right, brother. This has been a good one, man. I'm stoked. Till next time.